Hi, today we'll be doing a video on emotional contagion. To understand what that actually means, we must first understand what emotions are.
Most social psychologists consider emotional packages to be comprised of many components, including conscious awareness, facial, vocal, and postural expressions.
The amygdala are two almond-shaped masses of neurons on either side of the thalamus at the lower end of the hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system. The amygdala is responsible for the expression and feeling of rage, fear, and aggression. An animal without a working amygdala will no longer respond to stimuli that would have previously caused it fear or anger. When the amygdala is triggered, it triggers the fight or flight response, hence often referred to as the central for self-preservation. The amygdala is also responsible for the mediation and control of friendship, love, and affections. A human with a damaged amygdala can recognize people, but won't be able to decide whether he likes them or not. But how does the amygdala work? If you get bitten by a dog, the amygdala will link this memory with danger and hence making you more alert or afraid of dogs. An interesting fact is that the size of the amygdala is also found to be directly proportional to the rage of the person.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter produced in the midbrain and the nucleus of the hypothalamus. Dopamine helps mediate pleasure in the brain and is associated with reward-seeking behaviors. Serotonin is a hormone that is essential to mood balance in the body. It affects mood and social behaviors. People with depression have a decreased level of serotonin, and scientists are unsure if depression causes a decrease of serotonin or if the low levels of serotonin causes depression. Endorphins are hormones that are produced in the CNS and released in the pituitary gland. Endorphins are released during exercise and create an overall positive mood.
And it turns out that emotional contagion actually has very little to do with this. So now we'll discuss our actual topic. Primitive emotional contagion can be considered a basic building block of human interaction. It allows people to understand and share the thoughts and feelings of others. Recently, from the 1990s to the 21st century, scholars, including the American Psychological Society from the University of Chicago, have begun to study the causes of and mechanisms of primitive emotional contagion in depth.
There is considerable evidence that the process of emotional contagion occurs in 3 stages: mimicry, feedback, and then contagion. The most controversial stage in this process is the first stage, the facial mimicry. Growing evidence shows that an instinct for facial mimicry allows us to emphasize with and experience other people's emotions. One of the most important discoveries that explains the mechanism of facial mimicry is the discovery of the mirror neuron. Mirror neurons were first identified by Giacomo Rizzolatti and his colleagues in the University of Parma, Italy. He discovered them by experimenting on macaque monkeys in the 1980s. He and his colleagues found that particular neurons called F5 in an area of the monkey's premotor cortex fired when the monkeys did things like reach for food, for example. They noticed that when they gave a peanut to a monkey, the monkey's motor neurons would fire. These were the same neurons that fired when the monkey itself grasped the peanut. The researchers also found that particular neurons responded to very specific actions. For example, a mirror neuron that fired when a monkey picked up a peanut would only fire when they observed an experimenter picking up a peanut. And the mirror neuron that fired when a monkey ate food would only fire when they observed an experimenter eating food as well.
4 years later, the group coined the term mirror neurons. Experimental Brain Research, Volume 91, Number 1, pages 176 to 180. The discovery of the mirror neuron was revolutionary to some psychologists, and they did some further investigation to gather more information about them and how they would affect psychology as a whole. V.S. Ramachandran, a psychologist at the University of California, believes the discovery of mirror neurons in the frontal lobes of monkeys and their potential relevance to human brain evolution is the single most important unreported story of the decade. The next step of the process is feedback, also known as afferent feedback. Afferent feedback occurs after the person has mimicked the other person's face. This step involves afferent neurons receiving signals from sensory organs and sending relevant messages to the central nervous system. This process effectively helps you to recognize what they're feeling by associating the expression with times in the past. This process occurs in the human in a matter of only a few hundred milliseconds.
The third step isn't as much of a step as it is the effect of the other two steps. By mimicking another person's face and then generating meaning from the expressions, one can be considered to have caught emotions from another person.